Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books and I let you know what I thought about them. But first, I will invite you to like this video, share this video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It really does help us out. And we always start with the pick of the week. This week's pick of the week, Do a Powerbomb number 5. From Image Comics, from Daniel Warren Johnson. I think we got Mike Spicer on the coloring, Russ Wooten on the lettering. I have enjoyed the hell out of this book, and this was one of the best issues of this wrestling fantasy nightmare so far. I absolutely love this. First of all, Daniel Warren Johnson's artwork is amazing. It is kinetic. It is dynamic. There is energy that leaps off the page. This book grabs you by the throat, puts you in a chokehold, and then body slams you, and even suplexes you all over the place, right? It's like Suplex City when you're reading this book, all up in your face. I love it, though. Action-packed, but it's got a very true and honest emotional core throughout the entire book. It's about family. Somebody cue Vin Diesel. However, this is also just such a pleasurable experience to read. You've got great coloring, you got great artwork, you got interesting stuff going on, and even if you're not a wrestling fan, this is still a book for you if you just like badass, bombastic comics. Do a Powerbomb is everything that I love about comics. You feel the excitement, you feel the energy, you feel the love leaping off of the page from the creators. They're pouring their hearts into this one and giving us something completely badass and nuanced at the same time. And that's what Daniel Warren Johnson does, and does really well, like his Beta Ray Bill, Wonder Woman Dead Earth, Murder Falcon. This dude is the real deal, and this is proof why. He's just getting better and better. Do a Powerbomb number 5. The pick of the week. Then we got Hitomi Issue number 1. This is a new one from Image Comics. It is from Zizaji Publishing. That's the Chris Ryhall, Ashley Wood stuff. So this one is like a samurai story. We actually got a couple samurai stories today, but I liked it. It's pretty cool. It's a familiar type story. There is a young lady looking for a samurai who's responsible possibly for the death of her family. It's kind of not completely clear on that, so she's on this mission. It's dealing with her, but it also deals with the samurai, what he's going through, and how he may not be exactly the evil force that she has built up into her mind. I really liked it. Like I said, the story concept is very familiar. There are tons of stories where this is kind of the thread, kind of the theme, but this one actually worked pretty well for me. I found it to be well-paced, well-drawn, and incredibly well-written. So I liked it. Hitomi Issue number 1, pretty solid. Then we've got Scott McTiernan's Halloween Party. So this is a one-shot comic co-written by Brian Posehn as well as Jerry Duggan. And what this is it's the next stop on the journey of one-shots that's going to be talking about, I guess, this Scott McTiernan guy. The last one, if anybody remembers The Secret Life or The Secret History of the War on Weed or something like that, it was like this weed-centric, ridiculous one-shot. I didn't really care for it that much. It was the same team, it's the same character, but now he's kind of going up against horror movies in a way, and in one part he's going up against E.T. So there's different takes and spoofs on different movies, and the basic gist is all the monsters are, they approach this guy like, hey, we need you to take out the real monsters because life has gotten so crazy, things are so scary now in the real world that nobody cares about all of us monsters. So there's a lot of nods to horror movies and things like that, and that's nice, and I enjoyed it. So I actually enjoyed this one more than the Secret War on the Secret Weed, I don't know, whatever that one was called. I enjoyed this one more, probably more because it does have some of those horror references, but I do feel like it started dragging just a little bit, kind of overstayed its welcome, but it was big dumb fun, or as we like to say around here, gigantic moronic splendor. Then we've got Spawn with issue 334. Sometimes I'm reading Spawn and I feel lost, and other times I'm reading Spawn and I'm right on board and I am enjoying where the story is going. Sometimes it's a mixture of both. This was a mixture of both. There is Al Simmons is dealing with some mutiny of his own, right? And then on the other side of the story, you have Sin going up against, or trying to go up against the Clown. And the Clown's got his armies and the new Violator and all that kind of stuff. So there are moments of this that I just loved. Like, I loved the flow of the book. The artwork, though, there's been something missing in the artwork in the pages of Spawn over the last few months. There's a dynamism that's just kind of lost, but that dynamism is in the story, so I'm intrigued by the story, but I'm also kind of forgetting, because all these Spawn books, and they're kind of taking place around the same time, but they're doing their own thing, and I'm losing my space in where we are right now. But Spawn is a good one to kind of bring you back to what's really happening, but it's just, I think it's time for a reread. Do I have time for that? Probably not. But Spawn 334, it was pretty decent. Then we've got Starhenge, Book 1, The Dragon and the Boar, issue number 4. At this point, I'm kind of just skimming through it. I have almost no clue what's going on in this story. I get the vaguest of ideas. Merlin is actually a being from the future who goes back into the past, but then there's the present. There's a lot going on, and it kind of reads more like, I don't know, like an RPG guidebook or something like that. But the artwork is gorgeous in this book. So it's playing with Arthurian lore, and it's doing something interesting with the concepts, and it's got beautiful artwork, but sometimes it gets bogged down by heavy exposition. But man, the artwork on this is just amazing, really cool. I think if we had somebody coming in to help out with the pacing of the dialogue or something like that, with the pacing of the exposition, I think this could be kind of more of a stellar book, because it's got great artwork, it's got a solid core concept, but the execution on the exposition on that concept kind of holds it back a little bit. Then we've got Namor the Submariner number 1. This is a new Namor miniseries from Marvel Comics. And regardless of the cover, this is actually a story set in the future. It's like old man Namor. Aliens have come. They've exacerbated the problems that the world was already facing, say with like climate change or pollution or all this kind of stuff. So like the waters have risen, they've flooded the majority of the world. So Atlantis is strong. Atlantis now dominates the majority of the globe because the majority of the globe is underwater. And Namor has this underwater city in which they're keeping certain humans in like a domed city where they can breathe air. And he's trying to help them, but then there's humanity still up on the surface, and they are actively trying to go against Namor. So Namor's kind of caught in the middle of the humanity that he's trying to help, the humanities that's trying to not let him help them, and the Atlantean people. So it's a cool, interesting way to externalize that inner struggle between his opposing dual selves, right? So I actually like this book. It's written by Christopher Cantwell with artwork by Pascal Fury. I really, really like Fury's artwork. Fury Road! Anyway, I liked the artwork. I liked this concept of the story. I liked the characterization. It's kind of almost like an old man Namor story, but not quite. It kind of stands on its own away from all that. So I actually liked it. I thought it was cool. And with Namor, because Namor is the upcoming villain in the new Black Panther movie, we got a new Wakanda book. So Wakanda number 1. I believe this is a series of like short stories that do feel like they're going to be connected into one thing, and then there's a backup story. It's like the history of the Black Panthers. This one was all right. This is written by Stephanie Phillips. It's a story focusing on Shuri. She's obviously going to be a big deal in the new Black Panther movie, so this is probably something just to get out there to remind people that she exists. This is what's going on. Put another book out there with her name on it, so if people go see this movie in a month, then they got something they can come to in the shop, something new, something fresh. However, it doesn't read as something new or something fresh. It feels like been there, done that. Doesn't really stand out. It was decent enough, but it just didn't quite grab a hold of me. Like something, when a movie's out, and I get why you want to put things like Namor and Wakanda out, because you got this movie coming out. Sure, capitalize on that, but you got to bring it. And Namor brought it. Wakanda, not so much. It was just all right. Then we got Star Wars Visions, issue number 1. I do not know if this is tied into anything else. I think Star Wars Vision, isn't that like a like an anime series where different people come in and do different things. I don't know. So if what I'm gathering is that the concept of this book is that a different creator is going to come in and just do their own kind of Star Wars tale each issue. So in this one, it is Takashi Okazaki. And first of all, the artwork in this book is really cool. Really cool. It's got that, obviously, it's got that manga look to it. And it does read like just a kind of a classic samurai tale. It's got a lot of references to, say, like Lone Wolf and Cub. But I actually did like this book. I found it really cool, and the artwork was great. I'm going to try to get to this one page in particular, because it is black and white, but then it has these splashes of colors, especially for the lightsaber. So I haven't really been reading a lot of Star Wars books. They just don't usually keep my attention that much, but I thought this was really cool because it was anchored by really solid artwork. The story's cool, and it's been there, done that, but it was an interesting way that the story was told visually. So I thought this was kind of cool. Star Wars Visions, #1. Then we got Punisher War Journal, brother, #1. Another War Journal one-shot. It's written by the same person who did the last one, Torun Grönbeck. I do not know. I've read a little bit of their work, and okay, I'll be honest with you. When I first started reading this, it was very heavy in like this narration that was going on, and it kind of bogged it down, and I was like, oh, this is going to be a chore to get through. It's going to be a chore to get through. But halfway through the issue, it allows the visuals to start telling the story. And basically it's about this cabal of criminals and well-to-doers, or do well for themselves, you should say. This like cabal of like super elite rich criminals decide to throw as much money as possible and have this crazy assassin front just try to take out Frank Castle. We know that ain't going to work, especially because he's working with the Hand, so it's all right. Not super plugged into what's going on in the main Punisher series, which I'm loving, but I didn't really like the last Punisher War Journal one, but I did rather like this one. It was really stiff and troublesome at first. It's hard to get through at first, but then it allows the art to tell the story. It gets action-packed, but it does have some silliness in there. But, you know, there you go. Then we got Daredevil here with issue #4. Chip Zdarsky, and the artwork on this one is done by, let's see, it is Rafael De La Torre with Matt Wilson on the coloring. I really like the artwork here. Obviously, we missed the presence of Marco Cicchetto, but this actually works, and it works pretty well. So basically what's happening here is that Matt has kind of set everything to right for now in Hell's Kitchen. So now he's going to pair up with Elektra, start this thing where they're reigniting this ancient organization called the Fist, and they're going to go after the Hand, which is led by Frank Castle. So you know we'll be getting some big crossover coming soon. But this was a really solid issue. The problem with the Daredevil book right now is that they've rebooted it, right? They stopped it to do Devil's Reign, and then they rebooted it. None of that needed to happen. If that was just a continuous story, this would feel like it's a proper place in the story for these last 4 issues. In the overall narrative, this is a proper pacing as far as the story goes. However, when you end a series, do an event that's not as epic as the event should be, right? Because if it was just a Daredevil story, it would have read a lot better, I think. And then here, instead of getting a fresh start, we're getting a continuation of a long-form story already being told over dozens of issues. So the renumbering is very bothersome. However, the story is really good, and there is a major development in this issue that Daredevil fans will not want to miss. Guaranteed. Amazing Spider-Man #11. So after having a Hellfire Gala tie-in that was meaningless, like why did we even do that? And then having an AVX tie-in that was actually pretty good, we're back to another solid issue of Amazing Spider-Man. We get John Romita Jr., Scott Hanna back on the artwork. I know not everybody is a fan of John Romita Jr. I personally am. I love his work. I've been critical of the coloring of the book in this one and how they're coloring and handling John Romita's line work and Hannah's inking. I really feel like this is one of the best ones done. There is an image at the end that I want to show you, but I'm not going to do any kind of spoilery thing. But I'm looking at it right now. There's an image at the end Obviously, the whole point of this is that Hobgoblin's back. And they're also leaning into the idea that there's a mystery again. Who is it? So we got some Ned Leeds action, we got some Roderick Kingsley action, but who is this new Hobgoblin? And it's fun, and it kind of throws me back to my childhood when that was kind of what was going on. Who is the Hobgoblin? So I like that. It develops a little bit more about what's been going on with Peter, why he's working with Norman, all this kind of stuff, but it's still an inconsistent book, but I did rather like this issue, and I thought that artistically, this was a rather solid issue. I thought that the coloring in this one in particular really starts evening out for me. I think some of the choices were made that were pretty good, but I like this one a lot. But anyway, at the end, there's this image that is just so freaking cool, and the way they color it works so well. There you go. Then we got Venom issue number 11. It's a pretty solid issue of Venom. I have not really liked the last few issues. I'll tell you what, I know what it is. I don't like the Al Ewing issues. I like the Rom V issues. Rom V is telling more of a grounded story, even though it gets way ungrounded here, trust me, but playing with some cool concepts. But when I say it's grounded, it's still about Dylan, about his journey. And in this one, it actually puts more of the focus on the symbiote as well. I really like this. Now, a lot of people are going to be specking on this, I hear, because of the new sleeper agent character that's here on the cover. Is it a new character? I don't know. Who cares? It was a pretty solid issue of Venom, but Venom has been a bit up and down for me, but I liked this issue, and I thought it set up something really interesting to come. Then we got Fantastic Four issue 48, the final issue for now. It relaunches next month with a brand new number 1, but for the final issue, we're wrapping up this Axe tie-in. While the Celestial is judging everybody, Reed's in his think tank trying to figure it out, and then one of my favorite characters for Marvel, created by Grant Morrison, shows up, takes over the Baxter Building, and David Pepose is giving us Die Hard at the Baxter Building. But instead of Christmas, it's during Judgment Day. Okay, that's cool. And why it's so cool is because David Pepose understands these characters. He writes Sue amazingly strong and exactly how she should be. Johnny and Thing, and even Reed, all of the 4 core character traits are there for all of these characters. I loved it. I thought it was great. If David Pepose wanted to make a good extended run on Fantastic Four, it would be welcome to me because he understands these characters, he understands their relationships and their dynamic, and he understands how to do something interesting with the story. So I liked it. I thought it was cool. As far as the Axe tie-in bits, it's kind of got a cheesy ending, but aside from that, I thought it was a pretty solid book and a really solid fill-in, tie-in issue, which is a tough gig to do. Janice Bell, Captain Marvel issue number 4. If you liked that Peter David, Chris Cross, and others run of Captain Marvel from the late 90s, early 2000s like I did, this is the book for you. We're getting back to Janice Bell. We're getting back to Rick Jones. We're even getting back to Marlowe. It's like Peter David's like, yo, why is everybody forgetting about Marlowe, yo? But we're getting into it. I'm loving this story. Now, if you're not connected to that stuff, if you didn't read that stuff, if you're not familiar with these characters, with their conflicted relationship with each other, a lot's gonna just go over your head. You're not really gonna feel plugged into it. That's probably the downfall of this series, but this is definitely something nice for old school readers, but I don't think it's very new reader friendly, but I'm liking it. Let's jump over to DC. And from DC, we've got Batman Incorporated issue number 1, a brand new Batman Incorporated book, this time following the adventures and trials and tribulations of the team led by Ghostmaker, right? So Ghostmaker has recently shown up in the Batman universe, created, I believe, by James Tynion, and he's an interesting enough character. He has a cool, interesting dynamic with Bruce. He's got some history with Bruce that they've been showing in the pages of Batman, and then even in other things, right? This one kind of ties into that. So Ed Brisson is here with John Timms on the artwork. I think it's John Timms. Yes, John Timms on the artwork. I like the artwork. It's got a nice sense of energy to it. Sometimes the pages almost come across a bit cluttered, but actually they don't, and it uses action really well in this book. So this is all set up from the last Batman annual. So if you missed that, you will be a little bit lost at first, but they do a great job of catching you up. But once again, it's a number 1 issue that it's not a clean break. It's not like a good, super clean, fresh start. You do kind of have to have some knowledge of things that have come before, but at least it's kicking off into a new adventure here for issue number 1, even though it is referencing how we've gotten there. Unlike the Daredevil book, where if you just jumped in with number 1, I mean, you're missing so much. So, Batman Incorporated number 1, it wasn't the greatest. It was definitely not the worst. It was kind of good, solid, middle, down the road comic book making, and I liked it. I enjoyed it. So there you go. Then we got Batman vs. Robin, issue number 2. Loved it. Probably my favorite DC book that I read this week. Mark Waid, Mahmoud Asrar is here. It's Damian Wayne versus Bruce Wayne, right? But why is Damian Wayne so vehemently going up against his father Bruce? Why? Why is this going on? Here is the big explanation issue, but it's not just explaining this story, it explains how the recent events in the Robin series and the recent events in the Batman's Superman World's Finest series, how it all ties together and leads into this. And this, of course, is what's leading us into Lazarus Island, which is going to be like a January mini crossover event from DC. But I'm enjoying the story. There's some characters that are in here that are interesting, and it's got a turn at the end that you're like, what? I'm excited to see where this is going to go. Then we got Jurassic League issue number 6. This is the final issue of the Juan Gideon, Daniel Warren Johnson series. Daniel Warren Johnson's been the co-writer. Juan Gideon's kind of been the creative drive and force behind this. There was a moment towards the middle where they had to switch up the art, and that kind of, it just kind of stiffened up the book a little bit, but it does have a very solid ending. If you read Jeff Johns and Jim Lee, their Justice League origin from the New 52, this is that, pretty much, but the Justice League are dinosaurs, and Darkseid's a dinosaur, and it also has other villains that are dinosaurs, like the Joker and Reverse Flash, and I have a lot of fun with this book. I mean, it's silly. It's just getting some action figures, dinosaur superhero action figures, and smashing them together with really cool artwork, and that's what we got. In the conclusion, it was very satisfying for me. Then we got Superman, Son of Kalel, issue 16. I quit reading this one several issues ago, but this is part of the Kal-El Returns. This is part 2, it says. I didn't really dig on the book that much. It's just not something that's appealing to me. And what I did not really like about this was this is not part 2 of Kal-El Returns. That's not what's going on. Action Comics is not directly crossing over with Superman, Son of Kal-El. What's going on is that the return of Kal-El is being told through 2 different perspectives. From Lois in Action Comics and from Jonathan here. That's fine, but don't label it part 2 of a whatever part story if it's actually not. That infuriates me. This is more like a tie-in. This is not a part 2 of a story where it crosses over. Regardless of what you thought about, say, Batman Shadow War, at least Deathstroke led into that Robin issue, and that led into the Batman issue, which led into the Deathstroke issue. It was a continuous plot that you were following. This one, it's not. It's not a part 2. Anyway, then we've got Dark Crisis, Worlds Without a Justice League, Green Arrow, number 1. So this is not the last of these Dark Crisis, Worlds Without a Justice League one-shots, because we still got the Batman one coming up, and I'm excited to see what that one is. But basically, when the Justice League died at the hands of Pariah, they were actually sent to these worlds that were created from the wish fulfillment of these characters in a way. Pariah's having difficulties with Black Canary and Green Arrow occupying different worlds because they always keep trying to find each other in those worlds and this and that. So this is it's a book about the power of love. And it came across pretty cheesy, as cheesy as that sounds, right? But I mean, I guess it was all right. But the biggest problem is, especially now that in the pages of Dark Crisis, we're beyond the Justice League still being trapped in these worlds. What's the point of us? What's the point? From Boom Studios, we got The Approach, issue number 1. This is written by Jeremy Hahn, who I want to say was the writer on The Red Mother, if I remember correctly, and also written by Jason A. Hurley, with artwork by Jesus Harvas and Leah Caballero. Probably butchered some of those names. This was a really good book. This was a really cool start. Felt like if this was like a movie I was watching, I would be very, very intrigued. It's about this airport, small airport, I guess in a small town. There is a massive, giant blizzard going on. It's like whiteout conditions, and there is a plane that has to make an emergency landing. So they put together the skeleton crew to get to the airport, clear the runway, let the plane land, and then now they're getting snowed in. So like the 20 people on this plane and the very small crew here at the airport, They now are stuck at this airport. Then the power goes out, and trust me, I'm not telling you everything. And then a mysterious plane crash lands, and it unleashes something evil. That's a cool setup. And that's all this first issue is, really, is just setup. But it was well done. The artwork was great. The dialogue was great. The pacing was spot on. This is really good. Might be a sleeper pick of the week or something like that. Then we've got Once and Future issue number 30. This is the final issue of Once and Future. I love this book. And this was a satisfying conclusion, though I do feel like this conclusion has been rushed. I don't know any of the background information. I don't know if this was planned as 30. I know at the back, Gillen does a little thing saying that initially it was just supposed to be a 6-issue miniseries, and then they were having so much fun that they were attacking the pages and just trying to do whatever they could, and they kind of just went with it. Like he didn't have this overall plan or whatnot. But it does feel like a few issues ago, they were like, we got to get to the end, and they just started quickly putting things into place to get to the ending. Now, the ending is very emotionally satisfying for this story, and it's really solid. Unfortunately, it's not like the pick of the week or anything, because the way the book's been a little inconsistent over the last few months just kind of weakened the impact of that ending for me. That being said, I am very much looking forward to sitting down and reading all 30 issues. I have all 30 issues, and I do plan on doing that very soon, because I think this is going to be one. Same with Wicked and the Divine. That was one that I liked, but it would just kind of lose me here and there. But when I went back, when it was finished and read the whole thing, blew my mind away. That may happen here, but I've been loving this book. I love this ending. I just wish that it felt a little bit more impactful, but maybe on a reread, that will all iron out. You never know. Then we got A Legacy of Violence, issue number 1. This is from Mad Cave Studios, written by Cullen Bunn with artwork by Andrea Muti. Really fantastic team on here. Russ Wooten on the lettering. I really like this book. It was interesting. There's this doctor. Something weird's going on. There's this patient who looks like he's got all these self-inflicted wounds on him, and he just comes at the doctor, says some cryptic stuff to him, and then just drops dead. Then the doctor, I guess, is trying to get away with it and does the Doctors Without Borders thing. He goes to some foreign country, try to help out there, and then like the same thing happens to him there. And then there's this whole bit where there's this dude with this skull mask, and he's like torturing people, and he's planning something. One issue in, great artwork, great pace, great dialogue. I don't know what's going on, but it is a promising start. So this may not completely sell people on just the first issue. It will probably take a second issue, and I'll let you know how that goes. But the first issue was well done. It just doesn't do anything to really for you to go, oh, hell yeah, I'll be back for that. You're just kind of like left there dangling like, what's going on? All right. Then we got Dark Spaces Wildfire, issue number 4. This book gets better and better. Better and better. Hayden Sherman's artwork is so amazing in this book. And then the colors by, is it Rhonda? Yeah, Rhonda Pattison is absolutely amazing. The composition, the panel design, there's some really cool, interesting things being done here on the page by Hayden, by Rhonda through the coloring, but also through that composition. I love this book. So it's about these women prisoners, right? These women convicts who are on this like work release program where they go and fight wildfires. They get some time away from jail. They go and they're fighting wildfires, right? Well, they find out that there's this house that's got a fortune in cryptocurrency or something, and it's in the path of this fire. So they're going to break into this house, and they are going to steal this money, this untraceable cryptocurrency, and get out of there, and then all that stuff. But they go in there, they wind up finding a dead body. Shit hits the fan, and it continues to hit that fan. In fact, it's already hit that fan. That fan is just slinging it all over the characters in this book. I love it. This was a great issue, and Scott Snyder does a great job in this one of bringing us low, making us feel that hope, crashing us back down again. I really love that book. Then we got Scarlet Sisters, number 1 from Dynamite. This is a one-shot comic. I am not super familiar with these characters. They are part of the Project Superpower. So I was reading through this, and I liked it, and it kind of felt a little pulpy, and it kind of did its thing here and there, but it didn't completely grab me because I was really disconnected from these characters, from this world. I've never really dived into the Project Superpower stuff, though my buddy John Cole tells me it's really cool. So Scarlet Sisters number 1, if you are a Project Superpowers fan, you probably want to check that one out for sure. By the way, if you ever want to check out dynamicforces.com, you find something there that you want to get, use the code Robbie at your cart. It will save you 10%. So that's what I read. That's what I thought about it. What are you reading? What are you thinking about? Slim pickings this week. That's actually a small stack for me, to be honest with you. Dead Spaces continues to rock and roll. Legacy of Violence was good, but it didn't quite give us a good hook. Once and Future has a satisfying emotional climax, but I'm eager to see how it reads as a whole. The Approach, that was a really solid book. I liked that. Batman vs. Robin, setting up something, making other things make sense. That's how you build up to an event. You do stuff to plant seeds, and then they start rising, and then you reap what you sow. Even if you get to do that in only like 7 months or something. Let's see. Inconsistent books at Marvel that were really solid this week were Venom and Amazing Spider-Man. I really loved what David Pepose did with those Fantastic Four tie-ins. Daredevil is a good book, and I really am excited about the ramifications, about what happens in that issue. Star Wars Visions was pretty exciting. Wakanda's kind of forgettable. Namor was interesting to me. Hitomi was interesting, but once again, do a Powerbomb. That one really got me. And if I had to give you a top 3 books of the week, what would I do? Let's see here. Let's take a look real quick. Bear with me, if you would. Bear with me. Dun-dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, ba-dum-bum-ba-dum, ba-dum-bum-ba-dum. All right. Number 3, Dark Spaces Wildfire. Number 2, The Approach. And number 1, Do a Powerbomb. So those are the top 3 I would recommend. What are you reading? What are the ones you recommend to everybody? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And join us over at popculturephilosophers.com, where you can find links to merch, you can find links to podcasts, and other fun stuff. Anyway, I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Station. Keep on reading. Pop, pop, boom!